What would happen if an extremely malicious Minecraft player spent months infiltrating my server's staff team by creating and acting an entire new persona, gaining access to commands and permissions they of all people should not have, using their additional powers to find a powerful new exploit that would reveal the coordinates to hundreds of bases with the ultimate goal of forcibly shutting down my server forever. A story over 2 years in the making of a one-of-a-kind Minecraft player with dedication unlike no other. The story begins 2.5 years ago now, back in April of 2021. It was around this time that my not even 1 day old Minecraft server, og-network.net, had just publicly released. The server was new with hundreds of players flooding in, and we were having a lot of issues which me and the server's other owner were struggling to handle. Realizing that we were not going to be able to manage the hundreds of players, various bugs, crashes and issues alone, we decided to find some staff ASAP. And luckily we had received dozens of staff applications already, almost all of which were terribly written, with the individuals applying clearly not mature enough to moderate a server, let alone use Discord. However, amongst the sea of illegible applications from individuals of ages not even in the double digits was one very well written application from an individual who clearly had knowledge and experience, who for the sake of this video we'll refer to as F. There was only one issue though. F was below the minimum 16-year-old age requirement we had for moderators. But being desperate for any competent help, we took a chance and made that player one of the server's first ever moderators. Fast forward a few months, it's August of 2021 and the server now has an SMP. PvP was enabled, there was no land or chest protection, with a flourishing player-driven economy and marketplace where almost everything goes except for hacking. A true Minecraft survival server. It was competitive, there was PvP almost 24/7 at spawn, with lots of disputes between players over griefing, lots of cheaters, and some drama with certain staff members abusing their permissions and ultimately being demoted or exiled from the community for seriously inappropriate behavior. The server had some rough growing pains to say the least. Yet through that all, one moderator, F, was active and beloved by the player base, running fun server events, regularly helping players. Hell, F even wrote a staff application guide that would help other aspiring players looking to become staff. Clearly, our gamble had paid off and we had managed to secure a very knowledgeable and mature server moderator who was actively making the server a better place. A few more months went by again, now in late 2021, and the server went through some bumpy periods. F would resign from the staff team with no hard feelings, it was just due to general disinterest with the server. Not everyone sticks around forever, and we bid F a mutual farewell. In May of 2022, F would return to the server as a player, and in a moment of potential misjudgment, would get caught cheating, using PvP hacks like Kill Aura and Reach, and as such was issued a standard 30-day ban. F was extremely apologetic, and immediately owned up to the ban, which due to his prior positive reputation on the server, would be removed, giving him a second chance. Even so, F was willing to serve out the full duration of the punishment, clearly understanding he did wrong. He reapplied for mod a couple days later, however due to the circumstances surrounding his recent ban, we unfortunately had to decline his application, although stating he could apply again in the future. From then on, F resumed his days on the server as a normal player, was well known amongst the player base, and joined various guilds. Things seemed completely ordinary, an honest player who made an honest mistake and was working to regain the trust of the community again. F would not reapply for mod though, and little did we know what the future would hold. Earlier this year, F would send an extremely disturbing message to some members of the staff team, threatening various obscenities that far crossed any line of plausible deniability. As such, F was not only IP banned from the Minecraft server, but also the Discord, effectively banished from the OG SMP community. As for why such messages were sent, we didn't particularly know at the time, maybe a built-up resentment at other staff members due to him no longer being staff himself, or something else entirely unrelated. A screenshot of a conversation F had with another staff member from not too long before his ban demonstrated that he had discovered a newfound enjoyment of cheating on servers, finding it relaxing and wanted to try to develop more cheats to bypass servers' anti-cheats. Regardless, all we knew was that this was not the same friendly F from before. While exiled from the community at large, F would continue to play under various alt accounts on the server, using VPNs to bypass his IP ban, and with the many connections he had built up over 2 years, would form a guild of players mostly comprised of misfits who had their own past histories of bans and punishments, willing to keep F's new identities a secret. To give some context, guilds are a big deal on the server. The large ones are well known and extremely difficult to join. With large discords including proper application processes, new players need to fill out to even be considered. The larger guilds have very impressive guild bases with extremely large and powerful farms, taking them hundreds of hours to build that earn them millions of dollars every week, of which they guard with the utmost of importance, with only well-established and trusted players able to visit them. Many guilds have rivalries between each other that have lasted well over a year, with guilds going out of their way to grief one another and inside each other through joining and working their way up enemy guild hierarchies on alt accounts, crafting entire new personas in the process, and generally trying their best to sabotage each other in any way possible. My point is, guilds are extremely competitive and are often ride or die together, many of their bases taking hundreds, if not thousands of hours to construct, containing immense wealth. F's guild was no different, and with his connections would quickly grow to 100 members. As I mentioned, the guild was comprised of individuals who were on the shadier side. F's guild would far too regularly find and grief other guild bases, becoming enemies with many of them in the process. And with F's newfound enjoyment for cheating, clearly his guild weren't playing fair, ensuring a wild goose chase where F would play on various alts and help his guild grief bases through ESP and X-Ray, with multiple mods even mentioning that they spectated certain accounts from F's guild in Vanish, who all seemed to behave the same way. Various alts were banned, but F would just buy a new one and come right back. He didn't care if he was banned as well, regularly trying to provoke us by sending smug DMs with the names of alts he was using, alluding to the fact that we could never truly stop him, claiming we were false banning his guild members and stating that he wanted them unbanned amongst various other demands. Rather than grief the bases found with cheats himself, he would give the coordinates to various players and members of his guild to grief, leading to many long-lasting and large guild bases and farms meeting their untimely demise. F seemed to have this weird idea in his mind that if his guild members weren't the ones using cheats to find bases, they shouldn't be banned. But as more players associated with his guild were banned, he began getting progressively more angry at the staff. He regularly would brag to them about his unlimited supply of alts and how he would continue ban evading and there was nothing that they could do. He relished in his power, taking every chance to rub it in our faces. F's guild would continue to grief major bases, spamming withers with their Discord linked everywhere, and we had no way to stop them. This continued throughout most of 2023, with various staff members receiving angry or threatening DMs from F, and bases griefed by players of F's guild falsely banned. But F's master plan had yet to even begin. F's master plan to help TheMisterEpic reach 600k subscribers by leaking all the non-subscribers' real-life based coordinates. We are only 12k subscribers away and could easily hit it if all of you non-subs watching this video hit that subscribe button. No pressure, of course. Anyways, in early September, just 3 weeks ago now, F made an announcement in his guild Discord claiming that over the past few months, he had discovered a rare coordinate exploit on the SMP and had used it to gradually accumulate the coordinates to over 200 bases. F mentioned that this coordinate leak was just a small test run of what's to come. 200 coordinates to 200 bases. This was the biggest exploit the server had ever faced, which F mentioned included the base locations of many of the server's biggest and oldest guilds. This would utterly destroy the server. Players would quit in droves after realizing their bases were griefed or soon to be, and guilds would fall apart and quit once realizing that their hundreds of hours of effort would be all gone very soon. Dozens of large-scale farms would also be griefed, meaning the server's richest players would have their income sources destroyed, leading F and his guild to become the richest and most powerful guild on the server. And not only that, but F also claimed to have a powerful dupe exploit, one which we couldn't patch or detect. He began hyping up the coordinate leak, and word quickly spread around the server over the coming days, with dozens of players rushing to join his guild Discord. It was all players could talk about, with many wondering if they were lucky enough to be left off the list, or if their base's fate had been sealed. F had but one motive: to destroy the server and forcibly shut it down for good. He wanted to see the server burn right in front of our eyes. He wanted to shut down OG Network forever. On September the 9th, F would release the coordinates to 200 bases and farms alongside a dupe exploit. A full PDF document outlining the players' names, the exact coordinates of their base, and the dimension it was in was now public. Supposedly, F had discovered an obscure exploit in Paper, the server software we and basically all other Minecraft servers use, where you could private message an online player this strange message, then crash your game, which would then display the coordinates of that player you messaged in your crash report. As such, any player who had logged onto the server in the past few months, during which F had began gradually accumulating coordinates, was at risk. An extremely powerful exploit that allowed F to go entirely undetected, and now he had the entire server right in the palm of his hand. The number of players online immediately doubled, as players rushed online to not only grief other bases and farms from their rival guilds, but also to protect their own bases and salvage whatever they could. It was utter pandemonium. All hell had broken loose. The server was crumbling in front of my very own eyes at the hands of one single dangerously dedicated player, and there was absolutely nothing I could do. This day would go down in history to all OG Network players as the day the server finally died. Or that's what should have happened. Because mere hours after the list of 200 base coordinates were leaked, it was business as usual on the SMP. Nobody was griefed, nobody was banned, and it seemed like nothing had transpired at all. What happened? Well, what F, his guild, and every single player on the server didn't and still don't know was that F had made one fatal error. One error which had jeopardized his entire master plan. One lethal, easily avoidable mistake, which would cost him dramatically. Let's rewind the clock. In early June, a member of our staff team would contact me, the server's other owner, and our admin, and what he told us was extremely concerning. For some context, this individual was a day one player of the server, later becoming staff, and even was the staff member responsible for banning and then unbanning F way back in 2021. He had built up a well-established reputation, trusted by many, including F, who moderated the server at the same time, which led to F trusting him and confiding in him, that he was planning to try and destroy the server, forcing it to shut down unless a series of unreasonable demands were met. The staff member obviously did not want to see the server destroyed, and as such played along, relaying all the information to us. And while at first F didn't reveal much information, he eventually would blurt out that he had an insider on the staff team, therefore indirectly gaining access to many commands and permissions that someone like him should not have. And with his extensive knowledge of the server from his days spent modding, he could weaponize those powers for harm. Upon learning of this, we frantically scrambled to try and figure out who on the staff team was backstabbing us. So we began investigating the newer mods who had recently joined the staff team. The first and most recent of which was a mod we promoted not too long prior in June of this year. A player who we'll call K, who was an active donator on the server who had been playing for a few months. K's application was very well put together with a host of past modding experience, and he promptly became an active moderator on the server for the next 2 months. That's when we first noticed something weird. K had a variety of linked social media accounts, all of which were created on the exact same day. But that evidence alone wasn't enough for us to convict him, so we dropped the case for now. We then decided to investigate some older and more inactive mods who maybe no longer cared for the server anymore. And while doing so, F revealed that he had been bribing an inactive mod with Steam games to do his bidding. We used this information to narrow our list of suspects down to 2 individuals, making a judgment call to demote one of them with a rather large library of Steam games for inactivity. Our suspicions were right, and F would indirectly confirm that the insider was removed from the staff team. But then F revealed that it didn't matter, as he had already managed to inside the mod team himself in the meantime. Upon further questioning, he couldn't help but continue bragging and revealed it. F was K, and had managed to infiltrate the mod team himself. This was extremely problematic. A player with his knowledge and malicious intent could do some serious damage with the added power he had as mod. But rather than demote him right away, we had a different plan. Up until this point, we were unable to figure out which ult F was playing on. He was always one step ahead of us. But now we were finally one step ahead of him, knowing his plans and also his ult account. So we instead decided to let him remain as mod for the time being and tracked his every movement from the shadows. In the meantime, F continued to brag about his genius and plans to the staff member who relayed every single message right to us. We would eventually learn that F's goals were not to shut down the server through brute force or crashing, but rather through making all the thousands of players quit. And how would he go about doing that? Well, if he could somehow publicly reveal the base coordinates of every player on the server, letting the playbase go about griefing the bases themselves, there would be nothing we could do. We couldn't just ban hundreds of players at once, nor could we keep up with them or manage a scenario like that. He specifically wanted to target the server's donators with the goal of instilling fear into the server's players, so they would no longer want to commit time to playing or building a base. He wanted to stop players from playing and stop them from donating, cutting off our server's means of staying afloat right at the source. F's resentment for the staff and now server had grown into an utter hatred. He outright despised the server's staff, deeming them to be incompetent, only further fueled by the perceived false banning of his guild members. F would then begin bragging of a supposed 3-digit list of base coordinates he managed to come across. The staff member continued to play along with F, and that's when we discovered, months before anyone else knew, that he was planning to weaponize a list of 200 base coordinates to utterly destroy the server. F had used his earlier knowledge of the server to write a flawless staff application, modeled after his very own staff guide, had actively played and donated on the server for months to build a reputation, set up a variety of fake social media linked to his Discord, constructed an entire fake backstory, even practiced a fake British accent. And then, as a mod, while continuing to carry out normal modding duties as to not seem suspicious, spent an additional 2 months randomly teleporting to players while invisible in staff mode, and meticulously documented the coordinates to their base. F wasn't stupid though. If he teleported to thousands of players in the same day, we would see it in our logs and get suspicious. So, instead he teleported to only a handful of players per day, pretending to be checking if they were cheating while actually checking the area for base coordinates. There was no coordinate exploit, it was all fabricated for attention and to instill fear into the server's players. For an entire 2 months, F curated a list of the server's most notable players and guild bases as well as farms, all while playing the role of friendly server moderator. Or at least, that was his plan. F had not told anyone else but this one staff member his grand plan, and to this day, everybody in his guild and all the players on my server believed he had indeed found some powerful exploit. Due to his own ego and inability to let his self-perceived genius plan be known by only him, F had mistakenly confided in another staff member he believed he could trust. F thought only 2 people knew of his plans, himself included, and to this day still believes this, when in actuality, an additional 3 people were well aware of his plans the whole time, and unfortunately for him, those 3 people happened to be the very 3 people he would never want to know. F thought he had the server in the palm of his hand, but the entire time we'd been watching him from the shadows, ready and waiting for his every move. After learning of his plans and coordinate exploit, an opportunity opened up where we were able to temporarily demote K for inactivity, where F wouldn't suspect a thing, of which he was not happy about. F had staff for about 1 month before his plans were interrupted, and without his moderator powers, could no longer acquire coordinates. But he was not satisfied with the coordinates he got, and spent the next 2 months looking for an actual coordinate exploit to continue his escapades, of which he found none. He was originally planning to leak a document containing the coordinates to likely every active player on the server's base, meaning 1 to 2,000 base coordinates combined, sometime in November. But because we became aware of his plans, his time was cut short, and as such, he was forced to leak a much smaller list of coordinates earlier in September instead. Unfortunately for him, by the time the coordinates were leaked, only about 60 out of the 200 bases were valid ungrief bases now, and because we had been well aware of his plans for months, we had been planning what to do in advance, and readily awaited F's next move. By the time the list of coordinates was released, all of the server's moderators were online and used their additional abilities to teleport to bases before players could fly to them, creating a list of active ungrief bases that we could watch over and prevent players from griefing. The bases were protected using Core Protect and were promptly copied and pasted elsewhere, rendering the entire coordinate leak entirely useless within the span of 2 hours. And just like that, F's multiple month-long master plan had been foiled. Oh, and that dupe exploit he found, it was a social engineering method that became entirely useless once bases could no longer be griefed. The server was entirely unaffected, and most ironically, F's attempts to destroy the server will have only helped it grow through giving me this great story to make a video about. You yourself can join the server and be a part of these historical events in the future, Bedrock players included. F now spends his days still attempting to find another coordinate exploit, displeased with the failure of the first, but it seems his efforts are ultimately in vain. Or are they? Be sure to subscribe and join the server. Thank you all so much for watching.